Good news is your dates are here.
What's the bad news?
They're dead.
Oh, you're so cool, Brewster! Everybody's a suspect! Hey, Ted, where the hell's Corkscrew? Don't fuck with the Chuck!
So today we're going to be talking about Friday the 13th Part 2. It came out in 1981, directed by Steve Miner, who also directed Friday the 13th Part 3, or Part 3D, whatever you want to call it. And he also did Halloween H2O. We see the movie start with a POV shot of somebody's feet walking up to Alice's house. We see her sleeping on the bed, having a nightmare. She's squirming around all over the place. She's having a nightmare about all the events that happened at Camp Crystal Lake and decapitating Pamela Voorhees and all that. She gets up, she showers, goes to the fridge, and finds a decapitated head in the fridge, which obviously it's Mrs. Voorhees. We get to see Jason, although they don't know it's Jason yet. She ends up getting killed by the mysterious killer. She dies by like an awl through the side of her temple, which is a horrific way to go, like just fucking painful. Cuts to the title card, and we get to see Sandra and her boyfriend Jeff. They're going into town, and they stop at a payphone. They call their friend Ted to get directions to go to Camp Crystal Lake, but off in the background, you get to see his truck being towed. So they hang up the phone, they take off after the truck. It's basically just a giant prank because as they're chasing the truck, they go around the corner and that's where Ted's at. Fun fact, he's played by the uncle of Dan Sugarman. And Dan Sugarman is the guitarist of one of my all-time favorite bands, Ice Nine Kills. Ted pretty much takes them to Camp Crystal Lake. And on their way to Camp Crystal Lake, there's a giant tree branch that fell in the middle of the road. So Ted and Jeff get out and move the tree branch, and we see Sandra kind of like off like 5-10 feet away, and there's a Camp Crystal Lake sign. She calls the guys over, and Ted's very dismissive. He says it's Camp Blood, but when they ask him about it, he's just like, nope, I don't want to talk about it. He just discards it really quick, and they're on their way to meet all the other counselors and everything like that. When they get to Camp Crystal Lake, they're at the infamous Packanack Lodge. We get to see Paul Holt, who's like the head counselor, and we get to see all the other counselors, Mark, Vicky, Ginny, who shows up late. She has like this little fling with Paul, even though she's his assistant. They're having like this big old bonfire. Paul tells them the story about Jason, and it's just like one of the coolest things because campfire stories, as corny and cheesy as they are, they're always fun. You know, you have your friends with you, you have fucking s'mores, hot dogs, whatever you want to call it, and just making up some bullshit stories. Like it's always fun. We get to see Paul go to Ginny's cabin and they start making out. We get to see Crazy Ralph like hiding behind a tree, being such a peeping Tom. He's watching him and hears a noise, and the killer wraps barbed wire around his neck and suffocates him against the tree. You just gotta think like how painful that is, because if you try squirming around, you're just gonna get cut even more. It's gonna hurt way more. The whole thing's just fucked with a capital F. We get to see the counselors jogging for some reason. No clue why. Like Paul's out there timing them and everything. So Sandra convinces Jeff to go to like the restricted area of Camp Blood, even though Paul told him it was off limits. So they sneak away, they go check out that area, and a police officer shows up, catches them, and he takes them back to go see Paul. And Paul just kind of brushes it off with a cop. He's like, I'll deal with you guys later, go ahead. And the cop's being a real dickhead, like, you're not gonna reprimand him. I don't know, it's just like movie cops. Movie cops are just so god dang cringy. As the cop's leaving, we see a masked man run across the street in the woods, and he gets out, chases him through the woods. As he's chasing him for like 5 seconds, he stops, fixes his hair, and takes off running again. He stumbles upon this shack, and he goes inside, and this is the VHS rewind moment.
Clear! Clear.
Not only does he see it being a complete fucking dump in there, the killer takes a claw hammer and hits him right in the back of the head, and just his facial expression. After all that's said and done, Paul asks everyone at dinner time if they want one last night out on the town. Pretty much the whole camp leaves. There's only like, I don't know, 5-6 people that stayed behind. One of the counselors, Terry, goes down to the beach, and she's looking for her dog, Muffin, that just disappeared. She's gonna go for a swim, and we get to see some really creepy counselor named Scott. He ends up like taking her clothes, so she's gotta like run around naked and everything. So she's chasing him, and he steps in like a booby trap, and he goes upside down, just swinging back and forth. Terry's like, I should just leave you here for being a fucking pervert. So she goes and gets a knife so she can cut the rope. We get to see the masked killer come up and slit his throat with a machete, and it's so fucking cool. Terry ends up coming back. She sees that Scott's dead, so she takes off running, and for some reason, she just screams into the camera and it fades out that she dies. You see her later on in the movie with no blood, no cut, no nothing. You couldn't even tell she was dead, but apparently she is. So Ginny, Paul, and Ted all go to a bar. You know, they're drinking and kind of just making chit chat. Ginny, how much she like cares about that story about Jason. No one believes her, and I don't know, maybe you like as a friend, and especially like since Paul and her kind of had a thing, you kind of like at least listen to her, but they just kind of brush it off. And we can see Mark and Vicky, they stay behind, and Vicky's being very straightforward about the things that she wants done to her with Mark. And unfortunately, Mark's in a wheelchair, and we find out that he was in a motorcycle accident and paralyzed his legs. But yeah, she's just very straightforward with everything.
What do you want to play for?
Position.
She ends up going to her cabin and kind of freshening up. We see her spritz her bosoms and her front bottom, and I've never seen a girl spritz down there with perfume. Maybe it's just me. Mark ends up hearing like a noise out on the porch, so he ends up leaving the room to go out there, and it's the most iconic death in this movie and most likely the series. Out of nowhere, he just gets chopped in the face with a machete and goes down an infinite amount of stairs. It was the 80s, man. Gotta love it. So after Jeff and Sandra have their whoopee, the killer comes in and impales them with a giant spear. Vicky ends up going back to the cabin. She sees someone under the blanket, so she like walks up to him. The killer, it's the first time we get to see him. He's got the sack head, and he looks just like the Phantom Killer from The Town That Dreaded Sundown. Like a complete twin. I don't know if there was direct inspiration from that, like there has to be because it's pretty much the same outfit. He ends up killing Vicky. Paul and Ginny come back to the cabin, and Ginny finds a bloody ass bed. They're trying to like go around the house searching for the lights, the power's off. Ginny kind of sees like a shadow by the couch, and she alerts Paul that I think someone's in here. And Paul's like, no, that's fine. He ends up getting attacked by the killer, which now we know is Jason. I can start calling him Jason. He kind of knocks Paul out, and he goes after Ginny. Ginny gets away. She makes it to a cabin, and she's hiding under a bed, and she sees like a rat coming in front of her, and she literally pisses her pants, and you can see like the puddle like go out under the bed.
You're pissing your pants!
And Jason hears it, so he's standing on a wooden chair. As she's coming out of the bed, he goes to stab her, but the chair breaks. So as Jason falls and breaks the chair, Ginny picks up a chair, cracks him. She ends up running through the woods, and she finds the shack. You get to see Jason running off in the distance, just getting closer and closer. It's one of the coolest shots in this film, if not the whole series, in my opinion. She ends up putting Jason's mom's sweater on and acting like Pamela. She's getting ready to like chop him. He ends up seeing his mom's head, and he kind of like deflects the blade and everything, and then Paul shows up. They kind of have a good wrestle. He's getting ready to kill Paul. Ginny takes a machete, sticks him with it, like literally right in the neck. It comes down like fucking right by her collarbone. They unmask him, see what he looks like, and we don't get to see it yet, but they're kind of just in disgust by it. He pretty much carries her to the next cabin so they can kind of get help and heal up and everything. Paul goes to the door because he hears a noise. As he opens up the door, you see Jason jump through the window. He ends up grabbing Ginny. The way he looks is like straight up inbred hillbilly, and I wish they would have kept Jason like that throughout the whole series. I love that look. Yeah, this has been my review for Friday the 13th Part 2. Friday the 13th Part 3, that's one of my top 3 favorites of this whole series. I love Friday the 13th Part 3. This one's gonna be pretty fun. Yeah, what'd you guys think of the movie? Let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and until then, see you later.